Hello everyone and welcome to Death Mute Studio. In this knee-jerk spoiler-free review I'm going to be talking about SAS Red Notice, which is currently available on Sky Cinema. Let's have it. Tom Buckingham, played by Sam Heughan, a Special Forces operator, is taking Dr. Sophie Hart, played by Hannah John Kamen, from London to Paris to propose. When their train is deep inside the Channel Tunnel, Grace Lewis, played by Ruby Rose, and her team of heavily armed war criminals seize the train and hold hundreds of passengers hostage. Grace threatens to expose the British government's darkest secrets and blow up the Channel Tunnel if her ransom demands are not met. Unarmed and cut off from his counter-terror team, Tom is the only hope that Sophie and the other passengers have to make it out alive. Based on the best-selling novel by former SAS operator Andy McNabb. Sweet merciful Jesus, where do I begin? There's very little I enjoyed about this film. The script was awful, the acting was even worse from the majority of the cast, editing was bad, and the general look of the film felt cheap and made for TV. The main character felt unrelatable and emotionless. I know the latter is part of his character arc and a theme of the film, but I never felt invested enough to actually care. There are some actors that I thought would give at least a glimmer of hope in the film, with the likes of Andy Serkis, Tom Hopper, Noel Clarke and Tom Wilkinson, but not even these talented actors could do anything with the abysmal script. Although Andy Serkis was a lot of fun to watch and he seemed to take a lot of pleasure in showing his castmates what charisma looks like. Speaking of charisma or lack of, I don't get Ruby Rose. She always seems to be cast as this badass destroyer of men, whose sole mission is to seem to prove that anything men can do, she can do better, despite her vast physical difference, which does matter in films like these. When you see a slender Ruby Rose going toe-to-toe against a hulking man gorilla like Sam Heughan, and exchanging blows like physical equals, it takes me completely out the film. Now, I'm not saying slender people can't beat up gorillas, I'm sure they can, but not by pretending to be as strong as the gorilla. But my main issue with Ruby Rose is that she has no emotional range or charisma. Villains in films like these usually steal the show because they're allowed to have a lot more fun with the role. Alan Rickman in Die Hard, Tommy Lee Jones in Under Siege, and Dennis Hopper in Speed. It's practically part of the codes and conventions of action films that the antagonists are delightfully bad and revel in it. The action film genre doesn't have all that many female antagonists, and we're long overdue for an iconic female performance as an action villain. But Ruby Rose is so one-dimensional, dull, and worst of all, disappointing. She's just not a good actor. She's constantly miscast in these tough roles, but she hasn't got the talent or the physicality to pull them off. She reminds me of a modern-day Steven Seagal in that sense. She keeps getting these action roles, but it's unbelievably ill-suited for them. SAS Red Notice is a cheap knockoff of all the great action films that have came before it, particularly the ones I've mentioned previously. I've always been astonished by boring action films because it's just an incredible contradiction. It comes across as a film that didn't know Die Hard, Speed or Under Siege existed because it's so cliched. If you haven't watched it yet, I recommend you just watch Die Hard instead. Or if you do watch it, make it into a fun drinking game. Every time you roll your eyes, take a drink, and I promise you will be shit-faced well before the third act. If you have watched it, what did you think? Do you agree with my initial thoughts? Let me know on social media and the comment section below. Thank you for watching, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Ta-da!